Now it's time to create what I at least like to call collection pages. So jumping ahead to the end result that I'm looking to create, you would only use either the light version or the dark version. There's no need to have both present in your sample. This was just to give you two different options. One has the full bleed images stretching right across the top half of each page, and this version they're framed and they're a little smaller, so you can decide which you think would work best for you. And on our pricing page, we've just got a simple light image, and the prices are presented in a nice elegant way, and I'll show you how to create leading lines so you can create something like this in InDesign. But you'll notice our collections don't have prices, and there's actually a reason for that. For many high-end boutiques, there's this saying, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. It's a little bit pretentious, maybe it's a British thing, but for those who are aware of that, it might impress them to see something like this in your samples. So that's the reason for having no pricing on these pages. Now, if we jump back to our template, we have everything in place. You will have your text formatted if you've been following along on both pages, because of course on our fonts worksheet, these are linked. So we're drawing from the paragraph styles that we've established on this page here. So you'll be pleased to know you can leave that text, unless of course you want to, as it's only Latin text. I mean, I would delete this widow down here. There's no need to have it end like that. And you could even decide to tidy that up to match. Otherwise, you would just need to drop your images in. So I'm going to drop mine in now. And the concept I'm playing along with is the idea that for these collections, if it's a furniture and interior design boutique, these collections show off a finished feel with all of the items you see in these images. So you could either order the individual items of furniture as part of a collection, or you could have that whole collection installed in your home. So that's kind of a backstory behind what I've created here. I'll just mention the spacing. So if I hit W, so you can see the grid, we've got a simple half page, the smart guide. If I drag it, there we are, goes magenta, tells us we've hit exactly half a page for those images. And then I've used the grid to some extent. You can see I've nudged things down a little below the grid. Just wanted a nice bit of negative space between the text and the headings, and then a more or less even spacing around the edge of those portions of text. Similar on the preceding page, except we've got the image in the middle with the title above and the description below. So again, if I hit W to open the grid, you can see some of this conforms to the grid, and we're looking for similar spacing where we can, but ultimately you want to step back and look at it and trust your eyes. And I felt, rather than if I select all these elements, let's just move that text frame to finish at the bottom. If I drag this to where I get that magenta line telling me this is halfway up the page, that is now perfectly centered, but to my eye, it just wants to drop down a little bit, perhaps because we've got the heavier content here toward the bottom and the heading's a little lighter. So to my eye, I've just nudged that down to some extent. Let's look at the simple pricing page. So if I open the grids, you can see we've got that placeholder there. You could of course use a full page image if you wanted to. I'm just going to use this really nice image I've sourced here for my furniture boutique, and I've labeled these prices to kind of make sense. So I've got a price for the tan chair, a price for the blanket, and for the textured rug. You can create something, make something up that makes sense for your brochure here as well. But what I'd like to share with you is the way you can create leading lines. And I've deliberately, for these two bottom lines, done this by manually hitting full stop and putting little periods there until eventually it ends at roughly the point you want. Now that's an easy way to do it. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a few little things you'd be missing out on. For example, at the top, where if I select this, that's one single dynamically created object leading lines. It creates a little gap after the text, which is quite a nice touch. We could manually do that here. We could delete a period and add a gap. But what happens if the client changes the wording? If it becomes a textured ivory rug? Well, now you've got to fiddle around. You've got to try to delete the right number of periods. You've got to make sure it ends in the correct place. So there's a better way to do this. So to show you how to do this, we'll upgrade these bottom two lines to use leaders instead of manually placed full stops. So let's just remove those leading lines, and we're going to put just a tab between our item title and the price. And now select those two lines, go to type, tabs, and this may look a little overwhelming at first, but ultimately you want to click to right justify the tab you create. You want to, on this little bar here, click, and you'll see a blue arrow appears, and this is telling InDesign where you want your tab to end. So you'll hit the tab key once, but it's going to make sure that line is right justified and it ends all the way out here. I've done that just to line up with the one above. And finally, under leader, we'll click and we'll insert the leader we want to use. You could use anything, but I want to use a period or a full stop. So we'll place that there, and as we click and close and deselect, you can see that's added our leading lines. And the advantage is, if we now were to edit the item names, there's no problems, and the leading lines are now more dynamic and there's less that can break. So just a quick tip you might find useful in InDesign. If you're creating pricing, even a contents page, it's quite useful to know how to do that. So with your pricing or collection pages in hand, we're ready for the final step in our brochure design, which is creating the back cover.